It is now Donald Trump versus Vladimir Putin. Stare down, big time. Could get very intense. It's all about Ukraine, of course. As we reported, the Ukrainians, after being browbeaten by Donald Trump, have agreed to a ceasefire for 30 days. In that time, there would be a peace negotiation, but Russia has to cooperate. Now, Putin today said, yeah, maybe I will, but maybe I won't. Okay. Now, Putin is evil, and I know a tremendous amount about him from researching my upcoming book, Confronting Evil. And this is a bad man. I think, and I could be wrong, that he is insane. All right, let that sink in. I don't think he's rational. Bad Vlad Putin. I could be wrong. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I am not wrong about this. It's a showdown between Donald Trump and Putin. So we can expect a lot of back and forth. All right, Russia's not going to do this. Putin's not going to do that. You'll hear it every hour on the hour. Don't get emotional about it. I will tell you what's real and what isn't real. There is a negotiation going on now behind the scenes between the Trump administration, Steve Witkoff, and Lavrov, the foreign minister and second most powerful man in Russia. Okay? And they're setting the table for a ceasefire that I think Putin is going to have to do because he knows that if he does it, President Trump will have to attack him. Now, what do I mean by that? This is very important for you to understand. Trump cannot back down from Putin. He cannot look weak. Can't do it. All right? So if Putin is unreasonable, after all the emotion that Trump's put into Ukraine, Trump's got to punish him. And how that will happen will be unbelievably strict economic sanctions, far more than they have now. Trump will close the banking system all over the world to Russian money. That's what will come. Now, if some banks defy Trump, they'll go out of business because American Express, for example, will do business. So there's a million different ways that Donald Trump, as president of the United States, can punish any bank that doesn't cooperate. So Russia's whole financial system will collapse. That's how Trump is going to go after Putin if Putin doesn't cooperate. Putin knows that. He knows. Okay? And the Russian economy is weak anyway. So I don't know in and out. I can't possibly know that, but I do have the best sources in the country about what's happening inside the Trump administration. Period. I do. Now, today, you may have noticed that the president met with Mark Rutte. He is the leader, the Secretary General of NATO. He came to Washington. That's not an accident. So NATO and America have to join together with no dissent. So bad Vlad has to know he's up against that colossus. Can't be anybody sniping. But here in America, there's plenty of sniping because the Democratic Party does not want this ceasefire because it would give Trump a huge victory in the eyes of the American people. So the subversive Democratic Party, not all Democrats, but the party hierarchy, and we'll get into Schumer in a moment. Schumer is the most powerful Democrat. They don't want this. No. That's why you've seen the corrupt media parrot this garbage that we went over yesterday. So let me back this up, okay? It's always good to back it up with facts. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is a outspoken individual, and he's close to Schumer. So Whitehouse does a lot of the public stuff because Schumer doesn't like to do that. Whitehouse went on MSNBC, which is the outlet that all Democrats use to get a message out. And here's what he said.
Could you imagine Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a great president, telling Winston Churchill, you know, you're going to have to make a deal with Herr Hitler, and we're cutting off Lend-Lease until you do. And by the way, you may not be able to keep your whole island. That would not have been a great president. That would have been a cowardly and shameful president. And that is the position that Donald Trump has consistently been in with respect to Zelensky versus Putin.
Okay, that's ridiculous. Number one, Winston Churchill and Great Britain were not in any danger of losing the war at that time. They needed U.S. assistance, of course, but Hitler wasn't a lock to defeat England. In fact, in the Battle of Britain, Churchill and the British won. They beat the Luftwaffe, and they beat Hitler. And Hitler never invaded England, couldn't do it, didn't have the power to do it. Okay? So that's the big deal, because Ukraine can't beat Putin. They're totally different playing fields, not the same. Now, White House doesn't know that. He's not smart enough to know it. But here's the kicker. So in February, late February of 1945, middle of February, there was a conference among FDR, American President, Franklin Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin at Yalta. Stalin, of course, the dictator of Soviet Union. This was to figure out what to do after the Germans surrendered, which they were going to do, and they held out till May, but it was a fait accompli. Germans lost. Okay? So what do? At that meeting, Franklin Roosevelt, who was ill, gave Stalin everything. Everything. Okay? And that led to the Cold War, because Stalin just rolled across, and the Soviet troops occupied Eastern Europe. They violated everything. They did whatever they wanted. Now, I write about this extensively in Killing Patton, because Patton knew that was going to happen, was screaming about it, that you can't give in to Stalin, and FDR did. And Churchill was appalled, but at that time, Churchill didn't have any power. It was America versus the Soviet Union, because Britain was depleted after World War II. Churchill knew what Roosevelt was doing was giving Stalin everything. So White House had no idea. Oh, FDR never would have done that. A great president. Look, I don't want to call a sitting U.S. senator names, but that guy doesn't know anything about it, about history, about anything. All he's in business to do is to undermine Trump trying to get a ceasefire in Ukraine, which is a good thing. Yes, Ukraine's going to lose about 10% of its territory, and I feel terrible about that. There's no other alternative. That war will never end. Putin's not going to stop unless Trump forces him to, as Trump forced Zelensky to go to the table. Zelensky didn't want to stop the war. I don't know why. His population being brutalized. He's not going to win. Yeah, I understand you don't want to give away 10% of your territory, but sometimes in history you have to do that. You just have to. Okay, so when you hear all of this stuff coming out of the Democratic Party, you know that it's not true. There have been many, many times when wars have stopped and one side doesn't get what it wants, and it's wrong. It's wrong. But this is not a fair world. The best thing for Ukraine now is to stop the fighting, regroup, sign a mineral deal with the USA, which gets us on their turf, okay? And then hope that the Trump administration, NATO, bolster the forces against Putin. I have no confidence Putin will obey anything. He'll sign it, but he's evil and insane, in my opinion. And that's the memo. All right, if you have any questions about it, Bill at BillO'Reilly.com, Bill at BillO'Reilly.com. Killing Patton's a fascinating book for you to read. All right, because White House would never read it. Why does he want? He doesn't want information. They don't want it. Okay, all they want to do is punish Trump. It's not good for the American people.